85% of current entrepreneurs and business leaders started their careers in sales.
Hello and welcome to Pillars of Wealth Creation, where we talk about creating financial success with a special focus on business and real estate. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. Now, let's get to it. Hello and welcome back to Pillars of Wealth Creation. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. With me, excited to have Ron. I'm going to say it wrong. You even told me how to say it, but Ron
Koenigsberg.
Koenigsberg.
There
Ron,
we go.
welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Thanks, Todd. I'm great. I'm excited to be here. I've listened to your show, and I can't tell you, it's fun to be here. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you joining us. Ron is the president of American Investment Properties. They're a commercial real estate brokerage based in New York. So, Ron, welcome to the show. Give our listeners a bit more, just a bit about your background and kind of a bit about American Investment Properties.
Sure. Let's start with my background. I'm a 60-year-old commercial real estate broker. I just turned 60. I've been a commercial real estate broker for almost 30 years. And my undergraduate degree is in accounting. I have my master's degree in real estate development. And 23 years ago, July 4th, 2001, I opened up my own commercial brokerage firm, American Investment Properties. I'm president and founder, and I'm very proud to have my own firm, to call my own shots for 23 fun, successful years.
That's great. Yeah. 23 years. That's an achievement in itself. There's not a lot that unless you're like one of the big, the CBRE type ones. But to be the founder and to be the president and to continue for 23 years, congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you.
So you're also author of a book called The Power Broker: How to Be Successful in Business and Life. So that's really cool. Give me a quick rundown of that book. I'm going to have to grab it and read it.
Sure. Absolutely. No question about it. It's on Amazon. I wrote Power Broker: How to Be Successful in Business and Life because I wanted to really distill in my life the absolute most important message, which we'll share with your audience today, that I wanted to share with my two sons. I have a 10-year-old son named Chase, and my 11-year-old is about to turn 12 and go into the 7th grade, and his name is Drew. And I wanted to change these two boys' life. I wanted to write a book so meaningful that it's an open letter to them on how to be successful in business and in life. So we're going to talk about the skills that I believe are the most important pillars of wealth, the important skills that I want to pass along to my two young sons that, quite frankly, I think my dad passed along to me and to my brother. So we're going to talk a little bit about skill sets and human engineering and why this particular episode is going to be the best episode in 2024.
Ron, I really love the reason behind the book. I mean, that's really cool. And I think that that's an inspiration for me to also get a book out there. One of the things that I love about my podcast is that I've got over 700 episodes that my kids can listen to, and they can hear a lot of my thoughts. Now, I'm interviewing people, but a lot of it's a lot of my thoughts, a lot of awesome thoughts from amazing guests. And so it's just getting that out there for your kids to hear this. It's just so cool that you
Tell me about your kids. How old are your kids, Todd?
I've got an 11-year-old and a 15-year-old.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. And the 11-year-old boy or girl, or?
I got a 11-year-old a boy and the 15-year-old's a girl. So we're right in the thick of things, and sixth grader.
Me too.
Going to be a sixth grader. So yeah, you're having a fun time as well. So,
our kids, exactly, and that's what it's all about. So let's have this episode as if that sense of kindness that we want to educate this audience. We want to really educate as if we're talking to our own children.
Well, because we are. I want to talk, and that's a perfect segue, because you mentioned before the show that we're we have this shift, and we really do. We have this shift from pre-pandemic to now, where it's much more sales, entrepreneurial mindset, but it's just the way things are going. And I think you threw out a statistic. What did you say? 50%
Sure,
of
sure, sure,
people
sure.
won't have a W-2. I mean,
Sure, sure. This is just, in 2019, according to the Department of Labor of the United States government, um, 20% in 2019, just 5 years ago, 20%, 1 out of 5 Americans filed a 1099 non-employee tax return. Now, the Department of Employment Labor also anticipates that in 2027, that 50%,
jeez.
50, half of all Americans will file 1099 non-employee tax returns. So now we have half of Americans that are in this entrepreneurial gig economy. I didn't know what gig meant. Gig meant like a musician. They go
Yeah.
from gig to gig to gig to gig, and that's just entrepreneurial to me. Now, I happen to have this skill set that was taught to me as an early child at the dinner table by my dad, my mom, my dad, and my brother. We were all understanding in real time as my dad learned how to become a salesman. But
Mm,
what happened was he'd read books and hand them to me. How I raised myself from failure to success in selling by Frank Bedka. Books like Dale Carnegie.
mm.
Uh, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I think what really stood out to me is that 15% of one's financial success is due to one's technical knowledge. 15%. I have my master's degree. No one digs in deeper
Yeah.
to commercial real estate than me, but 85% of my financial success is due to human engineering or human factors.
Yeah.
So,
100%. It might even be
well,
more than that.
85%.
Yeah, it might even be
Maybe
more than
85.
that. I mean,
Why do you think
it
that?
well, I just look at the people that I know. I know some really smart people, and you do too, and they just struggle all the time. And they have all the technical knowledge in the world. I mean, I know people that go to every single real estate investment course and read all the books and all that kind of stuff, and they have yet to buy a piece of commercial real estate. That they're still struggling, 10 years later, and they've done it all. They've done it all. They're part of mastermind groups. They're part of every little group you could think of, and they own nothing or own one building that, you know, they struggled to get. And so, yeah, they got all the technical knowledge in the world, but they got zero to show for it. So
Right.
that's
So
why
if
I'm
there
saying
was a
it might be more
class
than
or if there was a podcast, the first thing we would say, and one of the key pillars in my book is life is outside your comfort zone.
I love that. I love that. I'm
How do
stealing
you
that.
grow?
Yeah.
How do you grow? Life is outside your comfort zone. But let's talk about selling and these skill sets, because quite frankly, that's really a lot to do with and goal setting and things of that nature are a big portion of my book. But I don't want to stray too far away from a skill set called selling. And, in my book, I said instead of algebra, 9 topics that should be taught in schools are the 9 skills that I believe are part of selling. How many universities you think we got in America? Colleges, universities?
I mean, it's got to be a thousand or more.
4,000.
4,000. Wow.
Okay. How many of those universities, colleges, prep schools have a class in selling?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't have a clue, but probably a small
90.
percentage. How many?
90,
Ni-
90,
90.
90,
Oh my
90.
gosh.
All right, so
Yeah.
we have 4,000 universities, and they're teaching hundreds, if not thousands, of different classes. 90 colleges in America have one class on
Mm,
selling. What
mm.
does what percentage of the United States economy do you think the Department of Labor attributes to selling?
Well, in again, that statistic would probably be low, but what, what is it? 15, 20%?
Right. They anticipate that it's 40%, as much as
40%.
40%,
Yeah.
38, 40%. So, right, it's hard to know. So, okay, so now we understand that 50% of all Americans will be filing a tax return,
Mm-hmm.
1099 non-employee.
Mm-hmm.
And we also understand there's only 90 colleges teaching one class in this. Okay. So no one's teaching this. We all need this skill, and it represents a large portion of our income. And we also established that 85% of success is from human engineering, how we deal with one another. One important statistic that I thought blew me out of the water when I was writing this book: 85% of current entrepreneurs and business leaders started their careers in sales.
Hmm. Wow. Wow.
So what came first, the success or the skill set?
Yeah. Definitely the skill set, the mindset,
Right.
right?
That's right. That's right. That's right. And that's why when my dad was reading these books and he handed them off to myself and my brother, and whether we knew it or not, we were learning how to human engineer through these books. I really recommend my book, Power Broker. I think it's amazing. I think everyone should read it. I think it will teach you very well how to human engineer. And I want, uh, your 11-year-old son and your 15-year-old daughter to understand the magnitude and the importance of dealing with other human beings.
Ron, who should pick up that book? Is it just every broker, or would this book be a good read for, you know, anybody who's,
Anybody. I
yeah,
really wrote it for Drew and Chase, and I wanted them to understand that if we're going to be successful in life, we have to start to understand some human skills. If someone said to you today, Todd, are you a good negotiator? What would you say?
I would say, heck yeah, I love
Yeah,
negotiating.
you love negotiations, right? Love it. All right. I'm really structured in everything that I do because I'm dyslexic. I
Hmm.
believe that
My
my
son is,
skills, yeah, it's tough, but I believe everything in my career is about my dyslexia. I just don't read well. I'm
hmm,
embarrassed about it. And I was kind of in the 60s because I'm 60 years old. I was born in 1964. And in the 60s and the 70s, you were just thought to be dumb. He's a dumb
hmm,
guy.
yeah,
Can't read.
yeah.
Can't retain it. Now there's a lot of different ways. And I'm really happy. What's your son's first name?
Carson,
Arson?
Carson, yeah.
Oh, Carson. Okay. So Carson is going into the 6th grade. Now, Carson, they understand how to teach him.
Yeah,
It's
a lot
not as
different.
confusing. It's a lot different. But structure to me is everything. So
He's
when I
literally
think
right
in
now
mhm,
on a tutor session. In in the house, he's
okay.
on a virtual tutor session with
Hmm.
dyslexia specialist. So it definitely is a lot different right now. And I would say he's still, not necessarily by the teachers, some of the teachers that don't understand it, but he's still thought of as, you know, some
Hmm.
of those problems that you said,
Man,
not as smart and
best
frustrated.
thing that ever happened to me is being dyslexic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Best thing. I am $1 million a year plus commercial real estate broker. My brother did not become a real estate broker. He became a real estate attorney. He's one of the top attorneys in the city of Miami. He has these skill sets. He has the skill sets, these 9 things that my father taught himself and by extension taught us: negotiation, active listening, teamwork, relationship building, communication, critical thinking, sales, public speaking, and resilience. I think these 9 topics should be taught in addition to algebra or instead of algebra, because I
Agreed.
can't remember any
Instead of,
algebra.
yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about just one of them because
Yeah. I want to dive in. I want to hear these.
sure, let's talk about one.
Okay.
Listeners are out there and saying, how do I, everybody's negotiating all the time, all day, every day. You try to get Carson off to school at a certain point or to go somewhere, you're in the middle of a negotiation. But I want it to be structured, and I want to
Yeah.
just give a few things to the listeners so they can fully understand that there is system. Sales is teachable. Negotiation is teachable. There are 4 C's to negotiation. And my brain goes right to number 1. It's like a dance. You can't skip steps. Common interests. You
Hmm.
sat down in a meeting. I sell shopping centers for my living. A guy says to me, listen, we're off on the numbers. We can't close. So I said, you're here. You want this shopping center. I know it fits in your portfolio. And the seller says, I don't need to sell. And I say, but you're getting older and you want to sell. You want to simplify your life. We want this deal to happen. We've been working on it for 6 months, and attorney's fees and shared information. So let's be honest with each other. We have common interests, but we also have number 2, conflicting interests. Number 1, common interests. Number 2, conflicting interests. It's not always, but oftentimes is a major repair. Let's go with the roof because the roof is always so expensive.
Yeah.
The new owner's saying, hey, listen, I don't own this. Why am I buying a new roof for the building you own? And the old guy is saying, no, 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 no. Your building. You get to own it and enjoy a new roof. So everyone is passing the buck. Okay. So the first thing to do is to understand the conflicting interests. I don't know. Carson wants to play with his friends and it's dinner time. I don't know. He wants to play with his friends and you want him to come inside. That's the conflicting interest that day. Okay. Then there's something called the third C, criteria. What do we normally do? What does the contract of sale call for? What's the industry standard? What's normal? At 5 o'clock or 5:30, Carson, we come in for dinner. That's what we do. That's the standard. That's what mommy said. The contract of sale says that the roof needs to be delivered leak free. How much is it going to cost to get it in a leak free state? Okay. The 4th C, that's the most important. That's what I tell my kids all the time. It's called compromise. Everybody wants to know, did you win the negotiation? No, I won the commission check. I closed the deal. I'm a commercial real estate broker. I get determined on, how many deals I've closed. I get paid on how many commission checks I've earned, how many deals I've compromised and closed. 4 C's. Mind always goes to, let's take a step back for a second. Do you follow me there with the common interests? Everybody wants to.
Absolutely.
Do you understand the conflicting interests?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There's a lot of them. Yep. Or it can
What
be.
about
Depends on the
in
deal.
what about industry standard? Why don't we take a
Yeah.
look and see what other people are doing?
Yeah.
Then it's not personal. It's not personal. You're
Yep.
trying to rip me off. You're trying to rip me It's not personal. No, we have a roof with a $16,000 issue. What are other people doing? Well, I got some quotes here. Leak free would cost us $9,000 to repair. It's not personal. It's a roof. It needs repair. Okay. Now, what kind of compromise can we, talk about?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. One of the things that comes to my head, I mean, we just negotiated on a deal and some of it was the seller wanted some things that were a little in my opinion, just extreme. And it was just a common sense thing. And so I just talked to him like, look, put yourself in my shoes as a buyer. Here's what you're asking. I don't think you would agree to do that if you were buying this property. And here's why. And it just broke it down. And that was we're taught you, and that fits into that compromise and a little bit of criteria, right? I mean, there's just some
does it
standard
also
things
fit
that we
into the
do,
general umbrella of human engineering?
right? What's that?
Does it fit under the general
Oh
um,
yeah.
of human engineering, the 85% that we spoke about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so what you were using, what I perceive to be is one of the other skill sets as well. So it's negotiation. It's also critical thinking.
Yeah.
I didn't take this class in school, and I wish that I did. I believe the best critical thinkers, the best negotiators, the best active listeners are the ones that were on debate teams.
Mm, yeah.
What skills does a guy or a girl who has debate skills have? They listen.
Yep.
They understand that a negotiation isn't an argument. It's not personal because they're willing to switch sides at any moment to better their skill set and to better their ability to debate. Okay. So I think some of the other things that I really want people to understand is number one, the importance of human engineering. That's it. Just that's it. Anyone comes out of this and says, "What's a pillar of wealth?" You know what? I sat at that table. My brother sat at that table. The reason why I really wrote this book is because when I was 54, 6 years ago, my brother said to me, "You're very, very good as being a commercial real estate broker. But could you imagine how good you'd be if you listened?"
Hmm.
I was like, no, I had this one. Todd, this was an easy one for me. I said, listening is a passive activity. You just listen. And that's when my life really changed. And I wrote this book and my business really exploded. He said to me, active listening is the most active thing you could do. Changed everything. He said to me, all people want is to be heard and understood. Like you were actively listening to that gentleman. And you, number one, if you want to active listen, if you're listening right now and you're thinking, how do I do this? Someone is talking to you. Put away your distractions.
Yeah.
What do you mean? You can't scroll on your phone? There's no looking and scrolling and answering emails when someone is talking to you? Exactly. Okay. Number one. Number two, try to reflectively listen. Someone says something that looks important to them, repeat it back to them. So your son's name is Carson. Is that correct?
Yes. Carson.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay. So we're going to reflectively listen. And then we're not going to interrupt when
Yeah.
someone is speaking. You know how hard that is,
Really
particularly
hard.
during negotiation?
Yeah. Yeah. Really hard. And the active listening, I love that he did that to you. Uh, I, I feedback like that is so important. I wish more people would do that. And yeah, you got to do it with tact, certainly. And depending on the person, sometimes more tact than others. But feedback is huge. And you learned a valuable lesson there. Listening just seems so passive, right? But if you actually
Mm-mm.
stop and think
Mm,
about it,
mm.
it's, you got to be active about it. And, my wife and daughter got in an argument yesterday, and I talked to my daughter after because she was just mean to my wife, and I talked to my daughter afterwards, and I said to her, she's like, "Mom was being mean, blah blah blah," and I said, "Listen, did you slow down and did you actually listen to what Mom told you? Did you take the time to think about it, or were you just reacting to everything she said and just not even listening, not even paying attention, but just reacting?" So you need to slow down and you need to take it in and take some time. And it's okay if there's a pause there. Take some time. And even if you have to say, "Mom, let me think about that," it's okay. So yeah, just remind me when you're talking about the active listening. It's like, yeah,
It
it's so
just
important.
came up.
And I
And
take notes when appropriate. We're not always going to take notes because we're
of course.
walking a property or whatever it might be. But I
Hmm.
take notes when appropriate. You and I are having this conversation. I'm taking notes. You're saying a lot of fantastic things. No way can I remember all those things without taking notes. And I take notes so I can ask you a further question or I can just
Me too.
remember it. Right. And
Me too. And really and truly, that was a big. Boom, aha moment. My brother says to me, "You're not listening." And someone else says to me, "If you want to be a good real estate broker, if they're talking, you're typing. You
Mm,
got to get a CRM.
mm,
And if they're talking, you're typing." So now two things happened. I start to understand that I'm listening better. And the first person I did this with at the time was the woman in my life at that time, Tara. And Tara's talking, and I'm saying to Tara, "I hear you. Tell me more." And she's like, "You really? Yeah, you want to hear about what's happening with me and not getting along with my sister? Yeah, yeah, tell me more. I'm actively listening. I'm putting away my distractions. Um, you know, um, and I'm saying, tell me more. And I'm not interrupting." And that's when I learned that communication, and that's one of the 9 skills that I believe should be taught in school that's focused on in my book, is the transfer of emotion.
mm.
Communication is the transfer of emotion. And that's what you were doing with your daughter and your wife. And you were communicating to your wife and say, "I understand you're reacting. Let's talk for a minute about what mom was saying to you." Those are critical thinking. But again, all under the umbrella of pillars of wealth and the 85% of that human engineering, how
Yeah,
we deal with one another.
yeah,
This subject is underrepresented in our educational system.
yeah, totally. I'm so glad that you talked about the listening part, because I think there's so much talked about in sales and so little covered in the listening side of things. We talk about how we negotiate, we talk about how we you know, find common interests, things like that, but we don't talk about how we listen. And that's probably more important. Would you agree with me? Like that's maybe the most important skill?
For me, it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
For me, it is. Why do you think, for Utah, why do you think listening is the most important skill?
Well, you talk about communication being the transfer of emotion. How do you have transfer of emotion if you don't know what the other side is talking about, thinking about, wanting to tell you about? And quite frankly, when you start to listen, you find out things that are maybe more advantageous to you than what you realized, right? I can think of a deal I did where we got seller financing with 5% down payment because I listened. I asked a question to the seller and I listened to his response, and I listened very carefully to his response and understood exactly what he was looking for. And it wasn't for the biggest price, and it wasn't for cash today. He wanted to spend more quality time with his grandkids, and that was it.
That's it. So you found his why.
Right. And
So you
it was
found
because I
his why.
listened. It wasn't because I told him.
As because you listened, it's natural. In America, we are taught in our schools to answer questions. We're never taught how to ask questions.
Mm,
I'm flipping the script here. I want people to learn how to dig deeper.
mm,
Flip
love that.
this, you know what I mean? Ask questions.
Yeah.
Let's talk about sales a little bit more. And let's talk about communication. Love communication, the transfer of emotion. Now, there was a study done by the FBI. You may have read about it. Whose book really highlights it? Never Split the Difference, Negotiating Like Your Life Depends Upon It.
Yeah.
Christopher Voss.
Chris Voss. Yep.
Chris Voss.
Great book,
Um,
by the way, listeners. If you haven't read it or listened to it, do it. Dude, I love the audio book. Have you listened to the audio book?
3 times, four
Yeah.
times, five
Yeah.
times.
Yeah. He
What he
actually talks and
says,
tells these
he
stories.
does talk. He does talk,
Love
and
it.
he's the negotiator, right? So what does he say? How does communication break down? He says 55, 38, 7. Do you remember that part?
Hmm. I don't. I don't.
Okay.
I probably will when you start to talk about it.
Sure. Sure. Facial expression,
Hmm.
body language, 55% of communication. 38% is tone and the way we communicate. Tonality. 7% through words.
Mm.
I send you a text, you shoot me a text. We're texting that, right? Now, there's no body language. They got those emojis. I don't really use them. I don't think they're so great. They try to help us because they understood we're going to be miscommunicating. So 93% of the message is eliminated. And we're trying to figure out, why are we miscommunicating? If you have an important message and you understand 55% is facial expression, 55% of that is included in body language, your presence, the way you, everything, your essence. 38% is your ability to communicate this through tonality, only 7%. Yet, I think the average person now sends 56 text messages a day, and it doubles for the under 24 crowd. It's like 120, 130 text messages a day, and it's growing. So I don't want to go too far from the main topic of today's. To be successful, 85% of current entrepreneurs and business leaders started their career in sales. Don't misunderstand what's important. The ability to communicate. Yes. Should I go out and read books on selling? Yes. Yes. 1,000,000%. I believe that, you learn a lot. You can learn about enthusiasm, goal setting, public speaking, and sales is teachable.
So you got kids that are going through the school system. So do I. They're getting, they get into high school. They're just after high school. Other than, what's your best advice to somebody who wants to learn these skills? I don't care how old they are. I guess it doesn't matter how old they are. But somebody who wants to learn these skills, like, what are some actionable things they can do? Uh, Courses, you know, public speaking. Like, what's
Right.
the best way?
Right. I believe that public speaking is one of the most important leadership skills. But there is a natural barrier for public speaking. So I believe public speaking is taught by doing. It's by giving presentation after presentation and overcoming this fear. Claustrophobia is very simple. We live among communities, and for thousands and thousands of years, people were scared of speaking out because the fear that they would be banished if they said something stupid or
Mm,
not or not correct within the group, and they would be taught and made to live on their own by rabid wolves. Now, we don't live in that world, and I can say something silly even here, and no one's going to, put me with rabid wolves. But it's in our brains, this glossophobia, this fear of speaking. So the only way to overcome that is by practice. And that's something that is hardwired in our brains and really no one talks about. I'm blown away that no one really fully understands claustrophobia. I spent a lot of time on it in my book
mm,
because it's not a real fear. So, um, point is, there's Toastmasters. They do it online now. I checked it out. It's good. I mean, these people are changing their lives on Toastmasters. I think it
yeah.
costs $5 or $15 for the year. It's really inexpensive. Toastmasters.com. The actionable steps is to first acknowledge this is 85% of your success. Second is to take an interest in sales. Yes, no one's teaching it. Why? I don't know. Maybe salespeople are just doing sales. It's profitable. 1 out of 3 salespeople that graduates and is successful when they go into sales out of college. 2 out of 3 fail
Mm,
because they weren't given enough direction. So the books out there that I'd recommend, Christopher Voss's book is amazing.
yeah.
Dale Carnegie's book is amazing. These
Which one?
books,
Dale's
How to
got a
Win
bunch.
Friends and
Yeah,
Influence
I love
People.
that book.
Okay. Yes. Written in 1936.
Still super applicable today.
Great. Great. But I'm saying that this great book, has there been anything unbelievable to replace it in nearly 100 years? No. Why? aren't these skills being taught? Maybe that's difficult. Maybe people don't understand them. Maybe because I'm dyslexic. Maybe if Carson reads my book or listens to the audio book of my book because he's dyslexic like me, and maybe a lot of people are out there. Listen, 1 out of 6 people are dyslexic. So I want anyone out there. I believe if you're listening right now, I believe that's why I'm $1 million producer. I really do. I believe because I'm so deeply dyslexic, I don't read the contracts. I have other people do it for me, or at this point, I look for the highlights. I'm able to look for the things that I'm looking for. I will tell you this. I believe these are the skill sets, the 9 topics. I can't encourage people enough, but if there's one takeaway that I want people to understand, it's that 85% of current entrepreneurs and business leaders started their career in sales. And that 85% of success, financial, the money, the cool things you buy, the car, the houses, the vacations, you're going to get that through human engineering. And Todd, I think your story was amazing. You said to this man and you listened and you heard his why. He likes to be with his grandkids. Grandkids are awesome. I get that.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, it's powerful. Ron, man, this has been really good. You've mentioned a bunch of books. If there's another book you want to,
Sure.
pass
Yeah, I really,
recommend to our
truthfully,
listeners.
it's called Power Broker.
Yeah.
It's available on Amazon. You set me up there nicely. It's by me, Ron Koenigsberg, and it's really and truly my story and what I believe are the key ingredients. I kept it light. I had help because I'm so deeply dyslexic. So if anybody out there is thinking, how did you write a book? I got help. I got help. I got
Yeah.
help. Put my
Yeah.
ideas onto the pages. It's an amazing book, and I am so proud of it. Um,
That's really cool.
Thank you.
Ron, last question before we wrap up. You've already probably mentioned them. Maybe you've mentioned all 3 of them, but I got to know, what are your 3 pillars of wealth creation?
Mindset, positivity. I see these celebrities and I see the road that they went on and how important this mindset of positivity is. Wealth
Mhm.
creation. I think that I was really lucky that I started out really I don't want to say poor. You know, uh, we started out very, very modest, and I watched my dad always take a portion of his income and invest it no matter how thin things were. He
Mm,
always had a long-term approach. He had a big sign on his desk or his wall that said, "Get rich slowly."
I love that.
Okay? There was no get rich quick schemes
Yeah.
in his office, in my house, in this mindset, get rich slowly.
Yeah.
Um, Third thing is, if there's one thing that I want to leave our listeners with today, and that is truly active listening. It's on my mind all the time. As soon as my brother said to me, "You have any idea how successful you'd be if you actually listen to other people?" That was a hard hit, but perhaps it was enough to motivate me to really actively listen. So I would use those 3.
Sometimes you got to get punched in the mouth to turn the right direction, right?
It's no fun, but sure.
Ron, this has been fantastic. Tons of value that you've added to the show. I really appreciate you coming on the show. Really appreciate you talking about such an important topic. How can our listeners get in touch with you? You got the book.
Go to my landing page. If you can type it right in there, if it's on the screen, ronkoenigsberg.com. I've got a module for each of the 9 topics that I thought I think should be taught in school: negotiation, active listening, teamwork, relationship building. And I really talk, it'll dive deep into the 4 C's of negotiation. It'll dive deep into public speaking, how to effectively communicate, how to overcome claustrophobia. Um, it's so important.
Yeah, love it. Well, listeners, we'll put that in the show notes. Take advantage of it. Go onto the website, take a look. Ron, again, really appreciate it.
Todd,
This has been
thank you.
fantastic.
I'm honored to be here on your podcast. Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, thanks so much for listening. I appreciate you being a loyal listener. Say, I would love to have you go on to our Facebook page and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. Go on to iTunes or wherever you listen and give us a rating and review. Don't forget to subscribe. Your rating and review just helps us push this out to more and more people and continue to grow our audience and hopefully positively affect a ton of people out there that really need this and want this. So the other thing I've got for you is a free ebook on my website. So go on to venturedproperties.com, and download our free ebook on real estate and on syndication. And I've got some data points in there, some really good stuff for you. So I'd love to have you take a look at that. It's free. I'm not expecting anything from it. And also, look, if you want some help in multifamily, want some help learning, growing, getting your business off the ground, I would love to talk to you about what it would look like to work with me potentially and see if that's a good fit. So you can go to coachwithdex.com and check that out, and we can definitely have a call. Thanks a lot for listening. You make it a fantastic rest of the day. I'll catch you on the next episode.